I'm back, y'all. I think it's charging. It got the little boat thing. But anyway, yeah. So she didn't like me asking about how far she was behind, and then she started, sort of like she's walking around the house like, I'm doing you a favor, like that was, to me, I'm doing you a favor. So I just, that y'all, that threw me for a loop. At that moment, I was like, Lord have mercy. Please get us out of this situation. I said, because it's probably not going to go good after this. And then, so let me go back. So, the next day, which I was waiting on the Uber to come get me. And I always go downstairs and wait, open the door so I can see them when they come. Because it'll tell you, the app will say, 2 minutes away, 5 minutes away, whatever. And so when they get like they 3 minutes away, I go them downstairs because I try to wait as long as I could because I knew she was downstairs. And so I said, well, let me, because me and her we had to be at work around the same time. So she, she was already up or whatever. She was feeding the dog. She was up and going. Same time. So when that particular morning, this was after the mortgage stuff, text or whatever, I told her, I said, we don't want to leave. I said, but I'm just, I just asked you a simple question, and I said I wasn't being mean about it. I said, but I was just wanting to know, well, you don't have to, she said, you don't have to worry about a place to live. You and your daughter got a place to live, but I don't have to show you my personal stuff or whatever. And I said, yeah, I understand that. I said, but I was just asking you a question. I said, because to me, it's important for me to know that because, I don't want no surprises. And I said, we've had enough surprises. We don't need that kind of surprise. As I said, because we don't have, I told her, I said, right now, we don't have anywhere to go. I'm just being honest. And so she said, yeah. I said, you guys got a place to live, blah, blah, blah. And I said, and then she said, well, even if that was the case, I would tell you that I would give you guys time to find you somewhere or whatever. I wouldn't just allow that just to happen. I would give you a week, I would give you a heads up. That's what she said. And I said, okay. Next thing you know, the Uber came and I was gone. But I was really, like I said, I was really surprised. And my youngest son, he even said it. He said, Mama, there's people that go to church every Sunday. They go to church 2 or 3 times during the week. And he said, she was just, how she was treating you, that wasn't right. And I said, well, that was okay. I said, because God, if I could take it, the mistreatment from my family, people that I've been around all my life and stuff, profess to love me or whatever, I sure could take it from her. And I never knew her before now. But I said, it's okay. And I told him, I said, God gonna bless us, and he did. He's still blessing us. I said, so no matter who the enemy try to use to come against us or whatever, it won't never work. It will never prosper because God gonna always take care of us through that situation. But God used her to help us for shelter. We need, he used her to help us. And we helped her too. I told her, I said, if nothing else, we were sent to help each other. We were supposed to help each other. You needed help with your mortgage. She was behind on her mortgage. And I said, I need a place to live. And I said, so we had to help each other. Just for 3 months. Well, that's 3 months worth of money that she got. And that's 3 months worth of a place to live that we had. So we needed each other. But I remember we sat down and we had a long talk the day before we moved in with her. And y'all, it was like it was so genuine. She was just saying how she was gonna do this. We're gonna do this, and she took me for a tour through the house. Big. She took me to a tour through the house. Here goes the dog. I said, yeah. I ain't got no problem with no dog, cause we have a dog. So I mean, it was just so much. It seemed like it was so much in common. She was a widow. I was a widow. She got a grown children. I got grown children. You know, it was just seemed like it was just a lot of stuff. Like, ooh, yeah, well, that was, like I said, she had on I feel like she had on a mask. And I feel like for her, she didn't have on a full mask. She had on a half mask. And I mean that in the nicest way I could put it. It was like she had a half one on. And because I feel like in a way she was genuine to a certain extent. And then it went, like I said, it went south. But even my children started noticing, they were like, Mama, she can help you, I even went to her, and it was in my spirit. I said, this was a little bit after we moved in, and I said, because then when we moved in with her, she wasn't working. And so she ended up getting a job. A week after my children left, place called us to start working. And it just seemed like everything was on the up, everything was going good. And that's when it seemed like when she started working, that's when she started acting a little bit whatever, different. And that's when she started acting kind of stingy with the car. I get that she was, had to work, and I understand that part. But I told her, I said, if the car break down, if you need gas, I said, I got you. I said, I got money, you got money now. We're gonna help each other. And y'all, I feel like, I'm glad it didn't, because I still wanted my own place, but I feel like she, to an extent, she wanted us there, but I think she just wanted me there. She didn't want my children there. I had told her time and time again, I said, we come as a package. And I said, I'm going to kick them out, but I'm going to have a place to live. No, that don't make sense. And I said, where they going to go? They ain't gonna know where to go. And they sure not going back to Tennessee. They already did that. So I think I know what I'm talking about. She didn't like that they were there, and I think she just wanted it to be me. I don't even think she wanted the dog to be there. But she, how some people just want, this is the terms I wanted on, and it wasn't going like that. But I had went to her one day, and I said to her, I said, what now, Sarah? We had some good talks. We really did. We had some really good talks about Jesus and life. She had been hurt by family members, me too. So we were just witnessing to each other. And she said, I was telling her, I said, we should try to get a car together. I said, I work, you work. And I told her, I said, you just never know how God can bless us that way. And she said, nope. She turned that down. Y'all, she turned that down quick, fast, and her. She said, She said, no. She said, I got enough debt. And I was like, well, I do too, but it's just an idea, because I thought it was a pretty good idea. Get a little car. It don't cost that much. And we could, she had a car, but I'm saying, I was thinking about just another car we could have. Because the car she had was a super duper old car. She started talking about how the car was, this before it got cold, before winter came. And she started talking about how the car wasn't reliable. That's how she got out of taking me to work. You know, she was just coming up with all type of stuff. I mean, it was just coming up out the woodwork. And she said, yeah, so, you know, this car ain't dependable. And then she started, the week that I was gone to take my daughter, when she was going to college, I was gone the whole week from the house. You know, I spent a lot of money that week because let's get a rental car, hotel for 2 nights. It was just a lot of expenses going on here. And so, then I still had my, you know, other bills I had to pay. But I had to do what I had to do. Nobody else gonna do it. And so, thankful for my job. They let me be off that whole week. They just been a blessing to me. The job. So anyway, I know that's God's favor. But y'all ate all of it. See, I always do. I don't know if you can see it. But so she excuse me. So yeah, I was gone the whole week. I'm trying to think, y'all. What was I going with that? Oh, about the car. So she had female, you know, women friends from church or whatever work. And she was talking to them. A lot of times, you know, I would witness that when I walked through the house or whatever. And I ain't had nobody to talk to them because, you know, we new here. I mean, I know people here, but ain't nobody I want to be on the phone with. So anyway, I would, you know, they be engaged in conversation, whatever. So when I came back, right before I left to go to Chicago, take my daughter to school, get her, you know, in school, going to school and stuff. She said that week that I had got off work, I didn't have to go to work that Friday, and I was off that whole following next week. And so the Thursday, which was the last day that I worked, I woke up Wednesday morning and Thursday morning. I wasn't feeling good. I mean, I was not feeling good at all. But I pushed my way through. I went on to work anyway. Because I knew I was gonna be, you know, be out. You know, they let me be out. So I was like, I gotta, you know, gotta push my way through. I got to. And I did it. The Lord let me do it. But that Wednesday morning, like I said, I woke up. It wasn't my throat. It was, I was just sniffling and I was stopped up nasally. I just wasn't feeling good, y'all. And she, I had went downstairs and she's trying to, I got some medicine. I said, no, I got some medicine upstairs. Because I had to start buying me little stuff from the Dollar Tree. You know, had my own little stash of stuff. I don't like asking about the net. And she said, I got this in the cabinet. I said, no, I'm good. And so so that Thursday when she picked me up from work, she said, so what you gonna do? This is what she said, y'all. She said, what you gonna do when you get back? And I said, what are you talking about? Because I didn't understand what she meant by that. And she said, what are you going to do? What are your plans? This is what she said to me. What are your plans for getting to and from work every day? And so, y'all, it was like I was a deer in headlights. I said, I don't have no plans. I said, and I'm thinking to myself, where is this coming from? You know, but you know, the old me was, I was trying to suppress it, but it was coming up. It was sort of peeping up a little bit, and I was like, "Where is that coming from? Where am I going to do?" You know, because that was the first. You know, then think about that, y'all. I wasn't feeling the best. I'm getting off work. I don't push my way through all day, and then I get in the car because I knew something was off because it was super quiet in the car. You know, she normally be, she wasn't talkative, but it was an eerie quiet in the car when I got in the car. And she was like, how was your day? I think she said that day, but it was still, something was off. And so I said, yeah, I said, we talked about a little chit chat, but it'll go quiet. Then she'll say something and go quiet. And then that's when she said that. And I said, well, what do you mean? And so she said, and I knew where she was going with that. I knew. So what she was trying to do, if you ain't figured out what I'm about to say, she was trying to set it up so when I came back from Chicago, that she wouldn't have to take me to work anymore. She was trying to get it going before she left. So basically, I would have in my mind, she ain't gonna take me to work, so I ain't gonna even ask her. But it didn't work, because I'm gonna tell you why it didn't work. So she, I said, well, I don't have a plan. I said, you know, how I'm gonna get back and forth to work. Now, keep in mind, at this particular time, Uber was not even, I knew it, you know, I knew I could do it, but I was like thinking to myself, what else you got to, you know, I was like, not being mean, but yes, that was nice of her to take me back and forth to work, but I'm like, what's causing this to come up, you know? And I'm getting, you know, I'm sick, I'm not feeling good, I'm getting ready to, that Friday I was off work, and I had to get the rental car and stuff, and I'm just like, where is this coming from, you know? And that's what I'm saying, I feel like somebody was in her head, in her ear, you know. That's a grown woman. You don't have to do that for her, blah, 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 blah. Which she didn't have to do it for me. No, she did not. She did not. No, she didn't. But, you know, I don't know. That's just me. I try to treat people the way I want to be treated, and I don't know. But anyway, she like I said, I'm not gonna lie, I started feeling some type of way when she was saying that, because I knew what she was trying to do. She was setting up stuff, so when I came back to Colorado in that next week, you know, she had to, she would be free. She won't have to take me, you know, pick me up, because she was picking me up and she was picking me up, taking me to work and picking me up. And so she was setting it up, setting the stage. So, you know, she wasn't gonna have to deal with that when I came back. And so when I came, I told her, I said, you know, to be honest, I said, I guess I just have to do what I need to do. I said, I can Uber or whatever I need to do, you know. I was just like, you know, thinking to myself, why are you telling me this now? Why? You know, I'm trying to get my man. She knew the pressure I was under, trying to make sure I had to do what I need to do to get ready to leave here. And I had to drive that whole way by myself and back. And, well, I had to drive by myself back because my oldest daughter came back with me, because they brought her to Chicago, my late husband's parents. But what I'm saying, you know, I had never did that before, so I'm like, I just didn't need no extra mess to think about. And so I said, I guess I just have to do what I have to do. And I said that real, you know, sort of smarty pants, but that's just how I felt at the time, because it sort of hurt my feelings that she was doing that. And I knew, you know, I'm thinking, well, if you don't like taking me to work or whatever, just say it. You know, don't try to hide behind, you know, or whatever. Be honest, be upfront with people. Tell them how you really truly feel. I just don't want to take you to work no more. And I wouldn't have been mad about that, because I kept saying that to her. I said, you are not obligated to take me. Oh, I don't mind. I'm back, y'all. The phone, my phone, while I was finishing up talking and everything, I was eating my covers, the phone went out, because my charger, I didn't realize my charger was that low, because I always charge my phone up every night. But I've been out and about, and I had to end up buying me a car charger from Walgreens. So because normally I use my Apple Pay on my phone, but I just had to use my other card, because I'm like, I can't even access nothing because my phone dead. So anyway, I had to come over here, which was like 20 minutes away from where I was at previously, but that's okay. So that's why I see why it's so important to keep a good charge on your phone, because you just never know when stuff may happen. But Usually that don't happen. That doesn't happen to me because I'm always mindful of that. I get on the children about that. But I think what I was saying, I want to finish up what I was talking about. I think what I was saying before the phone died on me was that when I came back right before I left to go to Chicago, I think that's what last thing I was saying. She was acting out of character, and she was trying to, get it basically where she wouldn't have to deal with me when I came back. She was trying to, get that out of the way, and it was like it was a trial run, like, let me see if she gonna, take the bait. And that way, this whole week coming up, I'll be free and I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to feel some type of way for not doing it. It's already been said, and she was just trying to free her conscience. So it didn't go over well. So while we were on our way home that day, because she had just picked me up from work, she said to me, "Oh, I'm so sorry." She said, because I said, "I don't have a plan." I said, "But you know what? I'll figure it out." I said, "God will help me," and I said, "I just have to do what I have to do." I said, "Because you don't have to take me anyway." And so she said, "Well, you know what?" She said, "I'm so sorry." I said, we're going to help each other out. That's what we're supposed to do. And so that was the end of it, y'all. That was the end of it. And so I thought. And so then, fast forward, I come back from Chicago from taking, getting my daughter situated, and had to deal with all that stuff with my late husband family. They were acting weird, and just there's a lot of stuff going on now. And so come back home, took the rental car back, whatever, and spent a lot of money because I had to get her situated. So I'm thinking I'm coming back to how it was when I left. Well, that's when she dropped the bomb on me, and she said, "Yeah." And then she said this before though. She said, one of her friends, lady friends from a church, says they told us, "What's that noise on your car?" This was while I was gone, supposedly. And so she told them, "What are you talking about?" She said, "I hear a noise," because they walked together or something. So I think the lady noticed this when she was pulling up to her house, and she said, "What's that noise? Something wrong with your car?" And so the lady we live with said, "No, not that I know of." So she's putting fear in her about the car. It's not going to last long because she's taking me to work. Not because of it's old, and it was old when we met her. The car was old when we met her. But the lady's instilling fear in her, whatever. And so I told her, I said, man, she was telling me that and she said, she told the lady, "Well, I don't know, I don't hear anything," and she was trying to play the good guy to me, making me think that but she really was all for what the lady was telling her, because she was trying to get out of taking me to work anyway. And so anyway, she started telling me, said, so I think that 2 more days went by. She was taking me to work, but then maybe midweek or something, and I went downstairs. The Lord put in my spirit to just go to her, and I said, "You know what?" I said, "You don't have to take me to work anymore." I said, I'll Uber. I just do whatever I need to do. I said, "I don't want you to feel a burden, and I don't want you to feel pressure or anything like that." I said, "We both are adults here, and we just gotta, figure it. I gotta figure them out. I gotta figure it out for myself. I can't have you trying to, you right. You can't help me no more." And so, I said it. I wasn't mean. I said it to her nice. And so, because she was what it was. I went to her one day. It was one day that week, and she was like, "Well, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to pick you up. I can take you to work that day, but I don't know if I'm gonna be able to pick you up because see, on Sunday after we got out of church, and she would get home, and everybody be settled around 3 or 4. I started automatically. I went in. I was automatically thinking about the next week. So I'm like, okay, how I'm gonna get back and forth to work? Because I ain't have a car. So my mind not stressing, but I was just being, trying to be trying to be concerned and responsible, because I didn't want no surprises, you know. And so, you gonna be able to take me to work all next week? And like, you know, then she'll be like, yeah, we're good. And sometimes she'll say, well, I won't be able to pick you up this day, you know. This was before all of when she was trying to get out of taking me. And so anyway, she when I went downstairs and told her that, and it's like I could see her whole face change, y'all. Her whole expression changed, like a weight had been lifted off of her. Like, thank you. I don't have to feel guilty anymore about that. Like she was so happy that I said that to her. And I was like, and I had told her, I said, you know, why, you know, I had told you when we first moved in with you that you are not obligated to, you know, I'm not your child, you know, you're not obligated to take me back and forth to work. But she wanted to do it. Y'all, every time I would say to her that you don't have to do this, you don't have to do this, no, I want to help you. And not one time, y'all, did I offered to give her gas money and stuff. She never accepted it. There was this one particular day I had told her, because she had told me she almost ran out of gas coming to pick me up from work. And I was like, what? And she said, yeah, because she had the detour or something. They was doing construction. And so, like I said, she started acting like her picking me up and taking me to work was just such a burden for her. It was such a burden for her, y'all. It just felt like she hated it. She started hating it after she started working. And so, yeah, that day she told me, but she would let me know I'm on my way, I'm almost there. And that particular day, I think she told me, said, I'm running late because we got a lobby at my job. So I mean, I was fine to wait. I didn't care about waiting, but it was just, you know, and she kept me, she would let me know. And so anyway, she said yeah. So when she finally got there, she said, car, and I don't like parking beside cars when they don't park right, y'all. Park somewhere else. But she told me, she said, I was running late because picking you up because I almost ran out of gas, and they doing all this construction, this, that, and the other. And I said, oh, I said, you almost ran out of gas? Because I didn't care about the construction part. I said, you almost ran out of gas? She said, yeah, because I had to do all the detours. And so I told her, I said, remember I told you, we're here to help each other. I said, you don't have to be almost running out of gas. And she never addressed it after she said that. But see, she wasn't saying that for the money part. She was saying it because she didn't want to pick me up no more. She didn't want to do that no more. She didn't care about the money part. And so then we ended up stopping at the gas station. And she didn't ask me for no money. I had money, y'all. I could have easily gave her $30, $40, but she had pride too. She didn't want me to help her. And so in that aspect, I don't know if it was, she felt, because I was already paying her the money to stay there, she felt, you know, like, you know, I don't want to ask her for any extra. I sort of think that's what it was too. But I was like, I think she could have felt, I told the children, I think she sort of felt like, you know, I don't want to, if I take extra money from her before it's time to pay me the the mortgage money, then she gonna deduct that. You know, I think she was thinking like that, because she was very much concerned about money, very much. So I think that's what it was too. She didn't want, like, you know how some people say, well, since I'm not giving you that full amount. You know, there's some people like that, but I wasn't like that. I wasn't gonna do that. But she, you know, I guess I could have done it, but I wouldn't. No, I wasn't gonna do that. And so, and I wasn't even thinking about doing that. But like I said, it's some people, they count every penny, and they like, well, I'm not giving you the full amount. You deduct that $20 I gave you for gas, and I think that's what it was. She didn't want to get into that, so she was like, I don't want anything extra. I just want the money you give me for the mortgage. Y'all, this lady got 4 pizzas. She gonna be having a pizza. She gonna be having a pizza party tonight. I missed that too, y'all. You know, we didn't do that, but we did get together when things were good. You know, before everybody started acting crazy back in Tennessee, we would get together over his parents' house and do stuff like that. You know, like I said, when everything was good, when the kids were little. But then it started getting into competition and people, you know, everybody trying to be jealous of everybody. You got a nice car, I ain't got a nice car. You struggling, I'm no, you look like you ain't struggling, but I'm struggling. You know, it's just a bunch of mess. But I miss that. I really do. They getting together with people and stuff, but God gonna work it all out. I know he is. He gonna work it all out for me and my children. He already working it out. It's worked out. But so yeah, so going back to the lady, so she you know, and y'all, no way, form, or fashion, I'm talking about her. I'm telling the truth, because you know, it's somebody who living in this right now. It's somebody could be living in this. I'm trying to help somebody because, you know, I didn't have no type of warning with this. I had never did this before, and I sure don't ever want to do it again. You know, that was not fun at all for me. When you get in a certain age, I'm 51 years old. When you get to be a certain age, I can't tolerate foolishness. And, you know, that probably would have really been horrible had I had been a whole lot younger. But I just, like I said, it amazes me how people, you think they one way, but when you live with somebody, you see exactly how that person is every day and every night. And, you know, like I said, with her, she had pride. She didn't want me to do little stuff. I was just about pleading with her to give her gas money. And then she went into a thing about, like I said, it went into about that car. And then come to find out the car was given to her by a family member, whatever. That's not even, it's irrelevant. But she was just, you know, it was just a lot of stuff going on. And she, I felt like at sometimes she was being very possessive. And instead of, like I said, if somebody moved in with me, what I got, they got too, you know. And she was telling me, you know, go in there and cook in the kitchen. And it took me a long time to do that. I didn't do that until maybe the last month or so we were living there, because I was like, okay, I got to put my pride aside. And I just started cooking spaghetti and, you know, just cooking. Because you know, we had been door dashing because I just didn't want to, I was like, this ain't my house, you know. The Lord said, okay. And I think, I believe that's what happened when I put my pride aside and quit trying to, I was so puffed up. The Lord said, well, now I can bless you, because, you know, you no longer are, you know, trying to do what you want to do. I'm going to do what I'm going to do anyway. But, you know, and I got out of his way, because like I said, I struggled with that. I struggled with it because I was, you know, feeling some type of way. I was like, this ain't my house, you know, and I didn't want to cook in there. I was door dashing and, you know, trying to just, in my mind, that door dashing, that means, okay, this, you know, this just, we just, I don't, you know, it's just like we in a hotel or something. You know, I was trying to get my mind away from we was actually living with somebody. And I think the cooking, that put me into, no, I'm staying with somebody, you know. So I was trying to separate myself from it, but it didn't work. But yeah, so it was a lot of stuff, y'all, I learned. It was a loaded, that was a loaded stay for 3 months. It really was. But glory be to God, he delivered us from that. He really did. And I just had to go through it because I didn't listen to him, and I feel like I should not have even stepped foot in her house, but I didn't listen to him, and neither did she. And then the other thing, after she pulled the stunt about, you know, you can't, that was the other thing. So when I was Ubering, you know, after she washed her hands with me, and okay, now I don't have to fool with her and Uber, do all that anymore. Then, so now she was basically, wouldn't be at home at her house when I got off work. You know, I opened the garage up, the car gone. Cause see, I had told my youngest, that's when they had moved back, he had come back, cause my youngest daughter was at college and my oldest daughter was there. And so I told him, he said, why she don't never be here, Mama, when you ask her? Cause she don't want to, I think it was a combination of stuff. You know, she didn't want to be there cause she didn't want me to maybe possibly ask her to take me somewhere. Number two, it could have been, she felt some type of way. I don't know, thinking I'm gonna ask her for something or something. I think the main thing, you know, she just didn't want to be there because she literally, I think she knew what time I would get. She knew what time I got off work. Then I got off at 4:30. So with the Uber, waiting on the Uber and all that, I wouldn't get to her house probably until like maybe 5:15. Let's see, 5:15, 5:30. Now if I had worked over a little bit, some days it'd be 6 o'clock, some days, I mean not 6 o'clock, it'll be like 5:45, something like that. And then she wouldn't be there, and I'd be like, she'll, yeah, I went walking today. And like I said, she wasn't doing any of that until she said she couldn't take me to work anymore. And then I just started, I started noticing everything. And I said, it's okay, you know, it's all right. And I said, God gonna take care of this situation. And then, you know, I was just noticing a lot of stuff. And then there was a few times, you know, I was sick and I wasn't feeling good. And she'll text me. She always texts, well, you okay? Because it was one Sunday, well, it was a couple of Sundays, me and my daughter didn't go to church. And, you know, we just stayed upstairs. And we always got up at the same time every Sunday. But she said, y'all not? I said, no, we're not going. I don't even think I told her we weren't going. She knew we weren't going because I didn't open the door and I didn't come downstairs. And so she said, are you okay? You know, so whenever something like that would happen, she would feel some type of way because I think she thought I was trying to leave her high and dry or whatever. I don't know. But to me, she was second guessing herself just as well. Because she was always telling me, say, you need to give it to God, you know. And I felt like she needed to give her stuff to God too, because, you know, we both were in a desperate mindset. And I'm just going to be honest. I'm talking about myself, you know. We both were desperate. We both were not trusting God. We were fearful and just man was just all over the place. And, you know, like I said, she was, her whole thing with it was, like I said, she wanted, in the beginning, she wanted us to live there. She needed that money. She needed that help. Yes. But when my youngest three, when she knew that my daughter was going to college, she was, you know, she knew that was going to always be, you know, she was just going to be there just until September. And then but the other two, you know, and she knew my son worked or whatever, but that wasn't even, she didn't care about that. She did not want them there. And like I said, I guess it's not charging, y'all. It ain't charging because the car ain't on. So that's why it's still showing a low mode. But anyway, I'm about to go in the Dollar Tree. But I wanted to finish this up. But yeah, I think that's what it was too. She just, you know, she wanted what she wanted, but she didn't want what came with what she wanted, if that makes sense. You know, it's like, yeah, you can stay here, but, you know, I guess I'll tolerate them. And you know, I guess, because I need that money. But y'all, I'm serious. I said, Lord, please don't ever let me do that again. Please. I sort of think staying in a hotel, I think we would have been real super low on money, but that would have been that was more peaceful than staying in a house with her. I'm just gonna be honest. And you know, the people at church were asking, you know, how's it going? And I was, you know, I'm not gonna talk about nobody, be mean or anything, but y'all, I was just, I was dreading it. And it had got to the point where when the Uber would pull up in front of the house, that, you know, they always say, that's the house, or sometimes they'll park a little bit before, not in front of the house. I said, yeah. And my whole spirit would just go, you know, I was just like, Because, you know, I just didn't like being there. I didn't like being there. And, but I want to share this too before I stop talking about this. There was this day, it was actually a day before my birthday. And I just want to share with y'all how people are and how they can present themselves one way and act another. And so, a day before my birthday, I had left the house, and, you know, like I said, after I stopped saying I was going to leave and I wasn't sure, you know, I said, okay, I'm going to stay here for however long we need to stay here, blah, 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 and I'm going to help you. And she wanted to make sure I was going to stay because she needs that money. She needs that money every month to pay her mortgage. And so anyway, after I was content, seemingly, and I was going to stay, then that's when she started acting, you know, not so content. And so she would tell me every now and then, I catch her, you know, I go downstairs, I catch her in the kitchen, she be looking out the window. And I was like, what's she staring off into space for? And I'm coming down the steps, so I'm seeing the back of her, and then I make some noise or whatever, and then she'll start back washing dishes or whatever. But it's like she was in really super deep thought. And so I already knew. God had already told me. He said, prepare. So I knew that we were not going to be able to stay there much longer. I honestly felt like she was going to try to put us out or try to throw some kind of monkey wrench in the situation where we weren't going to have a place to live, or I don't know, y'all, but I kept feeling like that. It was an uneasy feeling. And so anyway, and see, God ain't going to let his children be blindsided. He just ain't. Hold on, y'all. My daughter just texted me. Hold on. Okay, y'all, I'm back. I just went ahead and cut the car on because I'm trying to get this phone charged up because I use my Apple Pay, so I need to have some type of charge on my phone. Try to at least let it get to 30 or 40%. So anyway, what was I saying about her? So that was my daughter texting me, so I was trying to see. She's not ready. I thought she was ready. I'm trying to stay on this side of town, but I don't think she's gonna be ready till maybe 3 or 4 hours from now. I'll be home by then. My son probably have to go get her. But anyway, what was I saying about her? So she, I just feel like, you know, in the beginning she was, you know, everything was okay or whatever, but she just, I don't know, y'all. She just really, it went south. And like I said, you know, I'm not gonna stay somewhere where I feel, you know, don't feel comfortable or whatever, because it started feeling like, yes, I was paying her to stay there or whatever. It wasn't free, but it started feeling like, you know, this ain't where you supposed to be. You know, this ain't, you know, I started feeling uncomfortable. God was making me feel uncomfortable. And, you know, I had the whole setup in the room up there. I did a few videos from that bedroom, but had the whole setup, you know, and then there was some times, it was just a lot y'all had to deal. But that's, you know, it's just to be expected, because when you live with somebody, you got to deal with whatever they do. But it was hot when we moved in, and upstairs, you know, heat rises, and so it'd always be super cool and feel good downstairs. But in that room, y'all, it was like a furnace. And she didn't want to cut the air on. For some reason, she didn't. When it was in the heat of the day, the air would be off. It would be off because she was trying to save money. And, you know, when the children was there, they were like, Mom, it's hot up here. Because, see, I don't do that. You know, I may not have enough money to pay the bill or whatever, but I'm not gonna deprive myself. I'm not gonna be sitting up sweating in no house. I'm not gonna do that. I just have to figure out how to pay that bill, but I'm not gonna do that. But she was trying to cut corners and whatever, I don't know. But, you know, I was just like, whew. So we had to deal with that. But I know what I was gonna say, I was gonna share, was when she what was the other thing? She did so much, y'all. I had to go through so much with her. So about the car, but it was something else that yeah, that's what I was saying before I had my daughter. I was checking on her when she texted me. So the other thing was that a day before my birthday, she sent me, I left the house that day, my birthday was on a Sunday last year, and I left, but this was the day before, so it was Saturday. So I left the house that day, y'all. I was so happy because the next day was gonna be my birthday, and I had made plans to me and the lady at church to go out to eat at that's when we went to Olive Garden. I was just so happy. I was telling everybody at work, my birthday coming up, blah blah blah, and so just happy about that. And so I left her home that morning. I had a few little running around to do. And so that morning, I can't remember if she was there that morning. I can't remember, y'all, if she was there or gone or whatever. Because on Saturday, on this day, she always get up. She'll get up and then she'll leave. Like, she'll leave the house. She would leave the house, like, early. And then she'll come back around 1. And then she'll, because she be studying and getting ready for Bible study. And she'll leave for, get ready for Bible study tonight at church. And so that's how the Saturdays, I was so accustomed to everything because, I lived it. And so I knew this, and today was my day. I would wash, do laundry, just about all day. It took me all day to do that. And then I Instacart or watch YouTube, whatever. That's just what I did on Saturday. I go to church on Sunday. But she, this particular Saturday, she chose to just, say what she said to me. And so she said, can you come back to the house? And I said everything okay? Because now keep in mind my son, I'm trying to think, was my old, I think was my youngest son. I'm trying to think, he was back then. Yeah, he was there then. Yeah, he had come back by this time. So him and my oldest daughter were there that day. I think he may have been work that day. But I think my daughter was there. My oldest daughter was there. So she said, can you come back to the house? I need to talk with you. And so I was like thinking to myself, but I already knew. Y'all. The Holy Spirit told me. Says it's finna be some mess. Get ready. She thinking up stuff. So I told her, I said, what is this about? And then I immediately said, is this about us not having, is this about us not having a place to stay? Is something going on with that? Is that what this is about? And she said, she just said, no, just come back to the house. She didn't answer the question. She said, just come to the house so we can talk. We need to have a talk. That's what she said. So I already knew what it was about. And so then I kept thinking, is she trying to come up and get the nerve to ask me for more money? Because I felt like that was coming too, but she didn't have enough nerve to do that because she was happy to get the money she was getting from me. But I felt like she kept saying, well, things are so expensive, this, that, and the other. And I felt like, that was on the horizon, but she just didn't have the nerve yet to ask me for it. And so anyway, so I was getting a little rattled, y'all. I'm just going to be honest, because I'm like, what's going on? Because she never would answer the question, just come back. And then I sent her a long text, and I said to her, do you know, do this have anything with us not having a place to stay anymore? Are you do we need to get prepared to leave there? And then she finally takes me back and she said, we'll talk later. She said she had somewhere to go. We'll talk later. So I'm like, and I was like, why did she do that? So when we finally ended up talking, so we got back, I think it was the next day or a day after. It may have been the same day, I can't remember. And so we had a long talk in the kitchen, y'all. And I asked her, I said, what's going on? I said, are you wanting us to leave? Are you not happy with us being here? And she said, no, I just, no, she said, I just really feel like the Lord is wanting me to live by myself again. And I said, really? I was like, really? I was just thinking in my mind, you gonna do this the day before my birthday? You gonna do this now? We don't, we my children don't came back here, and I'm just thinking in my mind, why? And so she said she felt like that's what the Lord was telling her. And I said, okay. I said, now this time, y'all, I'm content. I'm content as I can be with a capital C. Because I'm like, I'm just dealing with what I'm dealing with, and this what we got to do. We got to do it. I was good at this time. So I'm like, where is this coming from? But see, somebody was in her ear, y'all. Somebody was in her ear, them women, her friends, so-called friends. And so so then, we had, like I said, we talked in that kitchen for 30-40 minutes, and I looked her dead in her eyes, and I told her, I said, we all make mistakes. I said, me and you both probably didn't make the right decision, with what we were dealing with at that particular time. And that's what she was saying too. She was like, I feel like the enemy used, because there was another lady involved in this, and she said, I feel like the enemy used that lady to pull us together, to keep us at a standstill. She was saying all type of stuff. And I said, well, in a way, you could be right. I said, but nevertheless, we in this situation, and I said, we just got to deal with it, the best we can and get through it. And she said, that's true. So she was just going, even in that conversation, y'all, she was going back and forth. And I could tell she was not standing firmly on what she was talking about. She was swaying. And then she went into, I told her, I said, well, if you want us to stay, if you want us to leave, I said, I said, since you have expressed to me that, you feel like the Lord is leading you to live by yourself again, I said, I got to start looking for another place. That's what I told her. And God is my witness. And she said, yeah, but I'm not talking about right now. Because she don't want us to leave because we're getting her money, paying her money. I'm not talking about right now. I'm talking about, this is, I got to pray about it. And I said, yeah. I said, you can pray about it. I said, but I said, at the same time, I said, since you have expressed to me that there's a possibility that you're gonna be living by yourself again. I said, we're gonna have to, I gotta make, I gotta be proactive now. That's what I told her. Y'all, I was watching these young people going in this I'm not judging, going in this bar. They look super young. Maybe they ain't young as they look, but the door's wide open. It's a bar right here. But anyway, I was thinking, I was like, where are they going? But they went in there. But anyway, what was I saying? So I told her, I said, since you have said that to me, you put it out there in the atmosphere. So now I can't ignore this. And so it was almost like I looked in her face. She was like, what have I done? Cause she knew that I'm okay now. It's on go mode now. I was settled. I was content. So after that day, y'all, no, and then I told her, she said, well, this is on down the line. She said, I just feel like this, but I'm not for sure. I got to go to God and pray about it. And I said, okay. I said, I get that. I understand all that. I said, but you've expressed your feelings. I said, I can't sit still about this. We got to be looking for us a place to stay. I said, because, you can come and tell me next week that to get out. And what I'm going to have to get out because this ain't my house, And so after that, it was sort of weird, after that day, because they were there that day. Because my youngest son said, Mommy, what's going on? What was y'all talking about? So I told him, and he said, yeah. And I said, son, I told him and my daughter, I said, we got to find us somewhere to stay. I said, this ain't going to work out. This ain't going to even last another, and that was October. And God had us a place. We moved in this place that we in now, this nice place, November, end of November, right before week or two before Thanksgiving. So it didn't even last. It didn't last too much longer. But these little children playing so rough. So yeah, it didn't even last. It didn't even last too much longer after that. But I was like, oh my gosh. I said, but I was just, like I said, I was really, y'all, it's just a lot of activity going on over here. I don't normally come over here this late on Saturday. There's a lot of stuff. Look like, I don't know what's going on. The bar place to that bar, doors wide open, but I like coming to this Dollar Tree because I just like coming here. But normally I come on Sunday. Well, there's a lot of activity going on over here today. Tonight, because it's almost 7 o'clock, I think, now. But anyway, what was I saying? So yeah, I just told her, I said, since you've said that to me, I gotta be on the lookout. And so we started looking. We'll look for a place, then we'll stop, we'll stop, whatever. And so the day she, like I said, she was, and the other, and now the whole thing that happened, my son, listen to this, y'all. I want y'all to make sure you pay very close attention to this part, because this is how the enemy will use people. And you thinking they one way, which I already knew. I had told my youngest son, I said, something ain't right in the water. And because after me and her had that talk, that just didn't sit right with me. My birthday came the next day. She bought me a little cake, but it just didn't feel, something was off. Because I was like, when somebody is telling you something like that, and they know you ain't got no other place to go, and I was like, I didn't look at her the same after that. And it looked like she was doing that, trying to disturb me and get me, all out of sorts or whatever. So I was like, okay, because, like basically she had a house, but we didn't have nowhere to go. And, I had told her a lot of my personal business and stuff, and, how hard a time we were having, this, that, and the other, how I was trying to save money. And people, like I said, a lot of times people will take the information you've provided to them and they'll use it against you, or they'll, in a particular situation. And so I felt like that's what was going on too. But she just, like I said, I feel like she, again, wanted us to stay, but she didn't want us to stay. She wanted the money, but she wanted us, if she didn't have to deal with us, she would have been okay. My children. But because I didn't, we stayed, and we didn't bother her. We didn't do nothing. We stayed. I went to work, came home. I may go downstairs to get me some ice out the freezer from soda or somebody drinking sodas, and I went right back upstairs and closed the door. I mean, I wasn't in her face. I wasn't, I didn't do none of that. But the other part I want to share, and I'm gonna have to close this video out because it's probably super long. Excuse me. But there was one particular Saturday, and it was actually the same Saturday that I was looking for a place. I went to Cane's, a chicken place here, and that's when I was eating chicken. And I was sitting in the parking lot. I was eating my food, and I was just, thumbing on my phone, looking for a place to live, different apartments, whatever. And I said, Lord, just help us. We need a place to stay. Just help us out, whatever, whatever. And so my son, he texted me, and he said, Mama said, I've been on my phone looking. And he said, this man said that, he told me that address, he sent me the address. He said, are you near this address, blah, blah. And I think I was like 30 minutes out. And he said, can you go meet him to look at the place we in now? And I said, yeah. And so anyway, that's another video. But that happened, that was on that Saturday. So prior to that, him and my oldest daughter were at the house. I was out and about. I had been out and about for a couple of hours that Saturday, like I always do. Out going to my favorite stores and getting little this, that, whatever in his car. And they overheard her downstairs. My son did, because at that time he was in the basement, and me and my daughter, we were upstairs, but he was downstairs. And so he said, Mama said, I can hear her. Said she on the phone, and she's talking about us. And I said, what is she saying? And he said, and I don't know if that day she thought he was at work. I think she knew my oldest daughter was up there, but I don't know, I guess she thought she was asleep or something. But he heard her loud and clear, and he said, she's on the phone talking about us, how, basically she was paraphrasing that she's wanting us gone. She's trying to, she was saying to whoever she was talking to, I don't know what her plans are or how God is leading her, but she I don't, I'm trying to be led by the Lord. And basically, y'all, she want us gone. That's what the whole conversation was about. And so, y'all, when my son told me that hurt my feelings so bad. And here I am. I've been just about begging her every day, y'all. You know, it was one day, one evening, I followed her to her bedroom door. This how I was always asking her about this. I followed her to her bedroom door and I said, you know, is everything okay? I said, are you wanting, you know, are we still good to stay here? Yeah, everything's fine. And she went on in the bedroom door, closed the door. And I went on upstairs to the upper part of the house, whatever, went on in my room. But, excuse me, I said, here I am begging her, pleading with her, and have given her time and time again to tell us to get out of my face. I don't want you here no more, all of that. And you still will not tell me the truth. You know, you still will not be upfront and honest with you, as honest as I'm coming to you. You won't be honest back to me. And so I was like, okay, whatever. And so, but when he told me that, I was like, that's interesting. I said, that's very interesting. I said, yeah. I said, we're gonna have to make plans to get away from them. And we did. God, it was like everything went on speed dial. She was expressing to another woman, and this is the woman that she always talked to every day, and she didn't realize, I didn't even know the latest, but I knew enough. The Holy Spirit was giving me enough, placing enough in my spirit that I knew they didn't mean her any good. You know, a lot of times people get jealous of you and in your situation, and you know, they like when you're struggling, they like when you're going through and when you're having a hard time. And then when everything's smooth and everything, you know, okay, you know, you ain't got nothing else to moan about. You ain't got nothing else to be complaining about. And they don't like that. You know, they want to hear you complaining. They want to hear you whatever. Some people like that. But she, I don't think I'm going to go in this Dollar Tree, y'all, now. I don't feel, this is a lot of, I just don't like all this activity going on. Like I said, normally I come over here in the daytime. I'm just gonna go on back to the house, and I get my daughter something to eat, and then we don't really need nothing. Like I'm gonna get her something because she probably wants something. But my other daughter, I had got her Burger King. But anyway, I'm not feeling. I'll come here tomorrow. Really, we don't need anything. We got soap, we got toothpaste. I was just gonna go in there and look around. But it's the same stuff as in there last weekend. But anyway, I'm going back to the house. I just be trying to think, y'all, what all I need to do, cause while I'm out, cause like tomorrow, when we get out of church, a lot of times I be ready to go straight home. I really do. I mean, it's nothing that I really want to do on tomorrow. You know, there's a few stops I be wanting to make, but today is really the day, and it don't got so late today, because normally I get out around 11 or 12, but like I said, it's almost 7 now. I know I'll be back at home by now. But I got a late start today because we didn't leave the condo until almost 3, because her appointment was at 3. I mean, we left around, I think it was like 2:30. So, we got a real late start today. Super late start. But yeah, I forgot what I was saying again, y'all. So yeah, when she did that, I was just like, okay, we gotta. So that just hurt me. Like I said, when he shared with me that he heard that, and I said, yeah, we're gonna have to go. We're gonna have to find us somewhere else to live, because you know we can't stay. I don't, you know, my heart, my just who I am, won't allow me to stay somewhere where I don't feel comfortable. You know, when we first moved there, I was like, well, you know, I pay her money. You know, what's wrong with staying here? You know, but no, I can't. It didn't feel right staying there, and somebody don't want you to stay there. That's what I'm trying to say. And that's what was going on. I knew she didn't, I'm trying to see y'all, these cars. I knew she didn't want us to really be there. And so I was just like, you know, we're gonna find somewhere to stay. And I had been telling my son that quite a few times. And he was like, oh, mama, what you mean? I said, I said, don't get too comfortable, son. I said, because, I said, your mama knows some things. And I said, she do not want us there. I said, she don't want us there. And I said, it shows, you know, and that was a time, y'all, it was a time that she wouldn't even hardly say 2 words to me, you know. She wasn't a talkative person. She ain't a chatty person anyway. But I'm talking about, she didn't even want to talk to me just a little bit, you know. And I'm like, what's going on? You know, what did I do something wrong? But I didn't do nothing. She didn't want us there. You know, it'll take a genius to figure that out. And she didn't want us there. And she was just basically, you know, okay, if I could just get the money and just, you know, deal with whatever I have to deal with, but just the days will go by like that. I don't have to deal, you know. But she had quit even really talking to me. I'd be trying to talk to her some days, and like she didn't want to be bothered. So I'm like, okay. So then it went from us, you know, sort of like, you know, it felt like family at first, sort of, and then it went to like, yeah, y'all just staying here because y'all ain't got nowhere to stay. Y'all just boarders or whatever you call it. That's what it felt like, you know, towards the end. But yeah, my son, he said, Mama said she, and that I could tell that bothered him too. You know, he's a young man, but that bothered him. He said, Mama, I heard her on the phone, and I know what I was gonna say. So yeah, a lot of times, yeah, people are jealous of you, and you can't see it because, you know, and take it from me, I lived in that for years. People's been jealous of me for years. I've been around and I've looked up to and really thought so much of them, but they didn't think nothing of me. But they were jealous of me too, of what I had and stuff, and who I was going to become in Jesus. But yeah, she was allowing those women to, you know, they were just basically manipulating the whole situation. And, you know, I felt like I didn't hear not one of the conversations, but I feel like they were telling her, giving her bad advice, basically. You know, you don't, you know, first it was the car thing, you know, you don't have to take her, you know, nowhere, and that she a grown woman, blah, 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 blah. And then the other part of that, they was telling her, you know, it's time for her to find her place to live. You know, she gonna stay there forever. You know, so I felt like, you know, she didn't know what she really needed and what she wanted, because everybody was in her ear like they had been in my ear too. But wasn't nobody else in my ear at that time. Wasn't nobody in my ear but Jesus, in my spirit, in my soul, and so in my heart. But, you know, she had other people that she was listening to. And like I said, I would be trying to have heart-to-heart talks with her or whatever, and she got what she didn't want to talk. So I knew something was up then, because I was like, yeah, she trying to distance herself from me. And like I said, you know, they had just come out of dealing with, you know, how my late husband's family, how they was treating me and isolated, acting mean toward me. And I'm like, here I am again. You know, here I am again. Here we are again. But God said, I'm making you stronger. I'm making you stronger. And He said, you gonna remember this, so you won't go through this door again, will you? Because you gonna remember how it felt when you went through that door. So, you know, a lot of times we bring stuff on ourselves that we don't have to go through. But again, it ain't never in vain. You know, the Lord will bring us out of those situations if we allow Him to. You know, He'll help us get out of them. But I just, like I said, I'm trying to close this. I go ahead and stand. I think the glasses are too big. But I just, you know, my heart go out to people who allow other people to misuse them and abuse them, and then it stems over into other people. You know, it kind of spills over into other people. You know, because here we were needing to be helped or whatever, and then you got she listening to other people, and y'all don't want to be like, you know, I'm honest on here. I try to be so transparent. But one of the ladies, they had an experience with somebody living with them, and she had expressed that to me. And the person that the lady who she was telling me about, the lady who she was friends with, one of them, because the other one had never had nobody live with her, but she told me this out her own mouth. She said, yeah, said she always asked me about you because she had somebody live with her, and they just left. You know, they just she had bills to pay, whatever, and they just left her. And I said, really? I said, what happened? And she said, they just left. You know, and of course, you know, it's three sides, not two. It's three sides to any story, and it's the truth. I mean, it's your side, it's their side, and it's the truth. And so, you know, I was like, really? She said, yeah. She said, so, you know, I don't nobody know but the Lord what happened, but that lady had a sourness in her stomach about, you know, I guess that's probably why, you know, she was telling the lady we live with, giving her advice, you know, do this, do that, you know, because that happened to me, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, like I said, a lot of times people don't tell you the whole story. And they don't tell you what they did, but they quick to tell you what somebody else didn't do or what they did. So, you know, like I said, I don't worry about stuff like that. But I do know the day we found out we were leaving, I went to her. I didn't tell her anything until we, and I'm gonna share that video how everything came into play. But I didn't tell her that we were leaving until I knew for sure. Like, I didn't tell her until we the guy had told us that we were moving in, like, you know, it was somehow finalized. I didn't, because I was like, I don't want to be, you know, I don't want to do that, speak too soon. But yeah, I told her, and she was like, she was not expecting that. And I could tell that she was not truly happy for us. I could tell that. Yep, I could tell that. And I'm not just saying that because of whatever. I could tell that she was not truly happy for us, like in her eyes. Because she was like, oh. And she was trying to find out, you know, what we was moving to and stuff. And I told her, but I didn't tell her no details. I gave her a general answer. And she's like, oh, yeah. But I could tell she was not genuinely happy at all. She was just like, okay. And I think I told her, I said, I don't think she liked that, but I think I told her, I said, you know, remember I told you, God is a God of suddenly. He works suddenly. And you know, nobody want to hear that, but when it's a blessing for somebody else sometime. But yeah, I hugged her and I told her I loved her, and then she said a little remark to me and my son, me and my children. She said, don't stop coming to church. So I was like, I've been going to church. I've been going to church all my life, ma'am. You know, so just little stuff like that, y'all. You know, it reminded me. And then the other thing, as we were moving out that day out of her house, you know, I didn't realize I had so much stuff upstairs. You know, it was two adjoining rooms. So it was the room I was in, and then the room my daughter was in. And that house it had a big house. And it was just her and the dog in there. But of course, at the time, you know, her and her late husband was living in it until he passed away. But the house was huge, big, and so she had the space, more than enough space. But so yeah, she said somebody else. But anyway, she said what I'm trying to say, y'all. She said yeah, said don't quit coming to church. And I'm like, we've been going to church as far as I can remember. You know, we gonna still come to church. But see, that was just a little undertone, because she was, you know, she didn't know what else to say. But I hugged her. Like I said, I hugged her, and we got all that stuff out of there. And so there was a TV up in that adjoining room, and my son, because didn't nobody really go upstairs. You know, she had like, it was just a far and off place or whatever. Because like I said, she stayed in the lower part of the house. And so my son said, Mama said, you should ask her for the TV, because it's just sitting up here, don't nobody. And I said, no. And it was on my mind to ask her, but then the Lord said, don't ask her for nothing. You don't need that. Because we came here, when we moved here, we had a bunch of TVs, flat screen, but I broke one, and then the other when we stayed in the hotel, we had to leave it at the dumpster because we couldn't bring it with us because it couldn't fit in my son's car. And so that was 2 TVs, and then what was the other? So right now we got 3 TVs in the place we in now. But we had like 5 or 6 when we moved here. But it's okay. I mean, you can only watch one. But so I told him, I said no. I said that's okay. We don't need that. And so I didn't even ask her or whatever, bother about it. And I'm glad I didn't now. But so as we were leaving out that Saturday, y'all, on Saturday, she didn't help us or nothing. She was sitting on the couch, you know. And I told my youngest son, he said, Mama said, she didn't even offer to help. I said, it's okay. We still leaving. We still got all of our stuff out of there. And like I said, I didn't realize I had so much stuff because I had been getting a lot of stuff out of storage, and you know, because I had got comfortable. I'm gonna be honest, I had got comfortable, and I was just getting inside the storage, taking it to the house, putting it up in that closet. You know, had my own closet. I mean, it was nice. I mean, we had a nice little setup. But like I said, I didn't think about we're gonna be leaving one day. And like I said, I was really getting comfortable. I had that bedroom set up like I was in my own house. So, but yeah, she didn't offer to help us. She was sitting on the couch with some papers or something that day, or I don't forget what she was doing. But because that was on a Saturday, so I think she was getting ready to go to Bible study. She may have been reading the Bible. I can't remember, but she didn't offer us help or anything. I was tired that day because we had got up. We had got up super early that Saturday, and we had got the keys to this place we in now, and we were just taking stuff back and forth. We had one car. We had one car, and but I didn't want her to help because I didn't want her to know where we lived. That's one reason. But she didn't offer. She didn't offer. But I'm talking about, we didn't need her to help us take the stuff to the place. You know, it would have been nice if she had helped us, bring the stuff downstairs and put it in my son's car. But I said, that's okay. But, a lot of times people show their true colors. They show how they really are. I saw her at church. I saw her at church since we had moved out. And I tried to grab her hand because I was trying to grab her so I could hug her and pull her to me so I could hug her and tell her I loved her and asked her how she had been doing. And she was so quick with me, y'all. Some people just can't hide how they really are. She was so quick with me, and she didn't. It was just it's like she didn't yeah, you used to live with me, but get out of my face. It was almost like that. So I was like, wow, But she didn't. It's like she didn't want to be bothered with me. So that was a little hurtful, but like I said, you live and you learn how people really are. And is no better way to learn how they are when you have to live with them. I'm being so sincere. And like I said, these are the same people who you see at church every Sunday, you see at work every day through the week, and hey, how you doing? But them the people you don't want to live with either. You don't want to live with them. And I was telling a man at church, an older man, I said, take it from me. I said, you can blame it on my age or whatever. I said, I don't ever want to do that again. Because he was telling me somebody was moving in with him, and I said, I'm praying blessings. I said, because, I just didn't have a good experience with it. And I think mainly that's because I wasn't supposed to do it. I think that was the main part of that. So Jesus is in it. It's peaceful, and it ain't no confusion about it. It ain't rough. It ain't none of that stuff. It's smooth. But I'm thankful, y'all. I'm so thankful that we no longer have to deal with that mess. And I pray for her, like I said, that the Lord will show her the way. And the other part, I kept telling her, I said, I believe the Lord wants you to sell your house and get you something smaller, because he got great things for you to do for him. And she said, no, I'm not selling my house and blah, blah, blah. I said, okay. I said, I'm just letting you know, I'm not God, and I'm not trying to be God. But I said, I feel it in my spirit that he wants you to let go. It may not be this house, but he wants you to let go of some stuff that you're holding on to. and she didn't want to receive that, because I feel like that house, she felt like that was the only thing she had. But y'all, I'm just gonna be honest. If I'm struggling to maintain something, like my car, the car I had, I said, Lord, take it from me. I don't want it no more. I can't even keep up the payments. What I want something that is burden, it's a burden for me. That means I ain't supposed to have it. And so, you know, some people, I don't know, but, and I'm not judging, but I had told her, I said, just pray to God and fast about it and see what he tell you. But she didn't like me saying that. And so I was like, okay. So I just, like I said, I just pray for her. I pray that she don't listen to people and let people be in her ear, because we can get so accustomed to other people telling us what we're supposed to do that we don't hear the voice of God. Excuse me. So I'm gonna get in here, y'all, in this Dollar Tree. I don't even know what time they close, but I'm finna get in here so I can get home, because it's getting dark. So thank you all for listening, and I'm gonna I ain't gonna take you in here in the Dollar Tree, cause but I'll talk to y'all soon. Thank you all for listening and subscribing to this channel. Have a blessed night. Bye bye.